Tech Sounds presents EduTrends.
Welcome to the EduTrends podcast, conversations with experts from around the globe about the discovery and creation of the future of higher education and lifelong learning. I am José Pepe Escamilla, Director of Tech Labs, an educational innovation unit of Tecnológico de Monterrey. Over the past 3 decades, I have been working on innovative pedagogies and learning technologies. I hope this EduTrends podcast will help us understand the future of learning. Today's guest is Alex Amouyel. She is the Executive Director of MIT Solve, an initiative that aims to identify solutions to actionable challenges through open innovation. We discussed how Solve works, what are the most critical world challenges they are trying to tackle, and how powerful is the wisdom of the crowd. I hope you find our talk interesting. So I arrived to Boston today, just a couple of hours, and I'm very happy that I make it because I having an interview with Alex Amouyel. That's correct, your name?
Yeah, absolutely.
I pronounce it correctly? Okay, so you're French?
Yes, I'm French originally.
Okay.
I'm British.
I'm British both. Okay, that explains your excellent accent.
Thank you.
So Alex is the Executive Director of MIT Solve. And MIT Solve is a project that MIT launched, let's say, to solve problems of the world using challenges and with prizes. Okay, so my first question is why is MIT interested in asking other people to solve challenges when MIT is known by solving those challenges by itself? So MIT is well known for tackling big problems in the world.
Yep, absolutely. And welcome to Boston and especially the MIT campus. So MIT's mission, if you look at the mission statement, is about solving world challenges and bettering humanity. And, typically it's done that through educating the next generation of scientists and technologists and engineers and doing fundamental research. But I think, there's a recognition, and the Solve was founded sort of under the leadership of President Rafael Reif, so MIT's president. There's a recognition that talent and ingenuity exist everywhere around the world, and that while there are 20,000 people on MIT's campus, and definitely some of the smartest collection of people around the world, MIT doesn't have all the answers, and that there are innovators and technologists and entrepreneurs in other universities, in other countries, in Mexico, in Chile, in Afghanistan, in Benin, who have good solutions and are doing good work in their communities and are close to the problems that they're trying to solve, but they're not accessing, good resources, good expertise, funding, mentorship, the things that are important, I'd say, in an innovation ecosystem to be able to develop and scale. And so the vision of Solve really is to support, to first find these entrepreneurs through those challenges, and then to support these entrepreneurs with MIT's expertise and resources and convening powers, as well as a lot of bringing together a lot of other players from different sectors and different parts of the globe to help.
So the idea is to give those people opportunities that otherwise they will not get.
Yes, hopefully that entrepreneurs, that social entrepreneurs, just like entrepreneurs, always face issues around talent, funding, mentorship, business models, and it's a very lonely task, and they need help. And I think that task is just, or these issues and that access is just magnified in different parts of the world. Obviously, if you're starting a company in Silicon Valley and it's software and you can demonstrate quick growth, customer acquisition growth, the Silicon Valley ecosystem, there's a lot of VCs, there are a lot of universities, there are a lot of talent that you can access. Equally, you're right now in the 1 square mile of the Kendall Square innovation ecosystem, which is, MIT is at the center of that, but then you have a lot of startups, $20 billion worth of VC funding in that square mile, a lot of accelerators / co-working spaces, a lot of the biotechs, and a lot of the pharmaceutical companies. And so you have this incredible innovation ecosystem of money and talent and resources available if you're here, and if you're in Silicon Valley and in a number of other places around the world. But that's quite rare. That's not available in many parts of the world, and in many parts of the US even. As soon as you get out of these hubs, it's much harder to access those resources. So how can we create it? I don't claim to say that Solve is going to be as powerful as the Kendall Square innovation ecosystem in terms of its physicality, but how can you create a more spread out virtual but global network to help social entrepreneurs wherever they are? They might be also co-located in Boston, but they might be in Afghanistan or Mexico or Australia or where they are, and hopefully we can help them with and create that innovation ecosystem or a version of that.
That sounds great. I think that we are grabbing the attention of all the listeners that are entrepreneurs in those parts of the world, that the ecosystem is not as developed as it is in certain places. And why don't you tell us how it works?
Yeah. So every year we launch challenges around education, health, economic prosperity, and sustainability. So we ask a question, which we spent quite a lot of time, getting input from MIT faculty and other experts around the world about these types of refining the questions. So for example, right now on sustainability, we have a question on the circular economy. And anybody can apply. You can be a nonprofit, a for-profit, you can be an academic project, not registered as a formal organization. Anybody who has a good solution can submit their solution. And we have a series of expert judges who screen and select finalists. And we invite the finalists to come to New York City during the UN General Assembly Week, which is going to be this September 21st, 22nd. And 60 finalists come and they pitch their solutions. If you have Shark Tank in Mexico, it's sort of like Shark Tank, but for social entrepreneurs. They have 3 minutes, and then the judges pepper them with questions. And then we select the judges select the most promising solutions, and we look for people who are really answering the challenge in their community, have a good, promising tech-based solution. We look for the diversity and the types of technologies and types of geographies where people come from, and so it's a portfolio approach. We select a total of 32 solver teams across these 4 challenges, so we don't believe there's one answer and one winner. These are complex challenges, and there's lots of these are early stage ideas, but by creating a diversified portfolio of solutions, we hope we can help them. We hope they can help each other, and that then our community of people both at MIT and our members around the world can help them. And so the challenge is closed July 1st, and there's $1.5 million of prize funding available so far this year, but really it's more than just the prize money. Once they're selected in September, they take part in a 9-month program where we do a needs assessment, we understand what they're looking for, we connect them to then additional people, and we really hope that they're getting media exposure, conference exposure, additional funding, expertise from MIT, mentors. And in a sense, we act as a talent agency for these social entrepreneurs, where we're really profiling them and helping them get connected to people who have resources to help them.
Okay, yeah, I was last year in the meeting during the General Assembly. I was lucky to be there attending another meeting of WISE, and I took advantage and I saw the diversity of that group. I talked to several people, and they were all very excited of the opportunity. And as you know, we have been working with you to do something together. And the metaphor that we use in Mexico for when we talk to other colleagues of what you do is to plant a startup garden and then try to make it flourish. No, during the next 2 to 3 years, you follow up those projects.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good analogy, and I think we're very excited. For the opportunity as we go. We definitely, as I mentioned, we do believe talent and ingenuity exist everywhere, and this is the opportunity to partner with universities across Latin America and to help develop sort of the sort of local ecosystems and have local partners that then help us realize our global mission in that sense. So very excited about that.
Okay. Why do you think that open innovation or using collective intelligence to solve problems will be important in the 21st century, or not? Maybe it's just a niche.
So, my view is that there are definitely some problems in the world where open innovation and collective intelligence are not going to be helpful. So if we think about nuclear fusion, I don't think that that's probably the right place to do it. I think that other departments, I think that other departments at MIT and our other universities are working on this and should be working on this. And it takes, obviously millions of dollars and decades of research and decades of cross-university collaborations to make a dent in that. And that's an essential part of thinking about a renewable energy portfolio. But equally, if I take a step back and think about, I guess, renewable energy and clean energy in general, whether or not nuclear fusion is harnessed, I guess, by humans in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, I don't think that makes a difference, or that's not going to make a much difference for the 2.7 billion people who today don't have access to affordable renewable energy on a sort of the basis that they need. And that somebody in rural Liberia or rural Colombia and needs a solution both today, and even if nuclear fusion was discovered tomorrow, that's not going to trickle down to those people. And so and so then you're saying, okay, so how do you design solutions and for those people? And are we talking, it could be lots of things. It can be off-grid solar, it can be wind, it can be a series of other technologies that exist or need to be adapted. But I think the question becomes, well, who, then it's maybe less about the fundamental research and really who is able to distribute it, adapt it, making it affordable, who understands, who's working with these communities already on the ground and doing things. So it's a different set of questions. And so then I think that's where open innovation and collective intelligence have a role to play. And Solve's platform owes quite a lot to MIT Climate Collab, which has been a project on collective intelligence out of Sloan for over a decade now, and who's been sort of studying how we can think of climate change as problems that can be passed out for individuals to help solve.
Exactly. So it has to have a combination of not a lot of deep research, but some entrepreneurship also, and maybe some knowledge of the local.
So that's why we spend kind of 6 months defining the challenges in a sense, and we ask ourselves, what is the 3 questions we ask for defining the challenges really is, what is a problem that affects millions or billions of people? That's sort of easy. There's unfortunately too many of those still in the world today. And then the second question is the one that you're talking about, which is there early stage innovation on the ground, as a prototype or the pilot, which is bubbling up and which is showing promise? Like, we accept conceptual ideas in the application, but we only judge and only look at prototype, pilot, and early growth ideas. So you have to show traction, proof of concept, or prototype at least level. So it has to be something that is being implemented in a community already and is showing some progress. And so is there enough of that type of innovation? And that's the point. Nuclear fusion is not out of the lab, and so that's not a good question. And I would say that's not a problem, that's a solution. The problem is energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And renewable
Exactly.
energy and affordable energy. It's not, in fact, nuclear fusion is already answering the question in that sense. And then the third thing is there a coalition of partners that Solve can put together, and MIT experts and other people who would be ready to support these entrepreneurs if we find them. So we don't want to have a series of brilliant entrepreneurs and then we don't have the expertise and the support and the money to help them. So that's the sort of 3 questions you ask. And that second question goes to really saying, is it ready for it to be an open innovation challenge?
Okay, so those are the conditions to define a challenge. Why don't you give us a couple of examples of challenges that you have run or you're going to run?
Well,
in
the
next...
ones that are open at the moment,
Yes.
Yes, and they closed July 1st, is around, for education, it's around early childhood development. So critical learning skills and early cognitive development for children under 5. And we know that the first few years of life are absolutely critical to the development of our brains and the neural pathways. And there's a lot of people at MIT who are studying that from a brain research point of view. Several, as you walk down the campus, you can see several big buildings devoted to brain research, notably the McGovern Institute. And it's a huge problem or opportunity around inequality, economic inequality. The former chairman of the Federal Reserve, Ben Bernanke, says that there's no better investment in a human than investment in early development.
Redevelopment.
The returns.
It's also Heckman, no? The economist, the Heckman equation that $1 invested in
Yes,
the early.
Yes, he won the Nobel Prize for that, exactly. So that would have been a better quote. You're absolutely right. But it's a huge issue or a huge opportunity to both, help really set up people and to realize their full potential and not have to catch up. The education system afterwards, if you will, is always catching up to if people enter primary school or children enter primary school without a good foundation in the early years, they're forever catching up, and that differential translates into economic poverty at the end of the day. So are there, and hopefully the answer is yes, sort of who is working on good solutions to really help
and what are the conditions or the criteria they have to meet to be the chosen ones? Or
so we look at, so basically if you go on the platform, we have a description of the challenge, which is more articulate than what I just told you. And then we have sort of avenues. We don't want to, as I mentioned, we don't want to suggest the solution, like that you have to use this type of technology or that but we give sort of avenues, I would say, of the types of solutions we might expect, but we don't want to be too prescriptive because answering the question is not helpful either if we answer our own question. So we want to leave it open for people to bring up solutions that perhaps we haven't thought about. And then the overall criteria are going to be around alignment to the challenge, scalability, potential for impact, innovation, feasibility. And then the judges basically evaluate the solutions on the basis and score on the basis of those criteria. And then they advance to the finals if they're in the top 60.
That's great. Do you have some? You have been running MIT Solve since 2016, am I right?
Yeah.
And do you have some examples of winners of past competitions that are starting to make these changes in the world?
Some that are exciting are in Indonesia, for example. I'll give you an example in Indonesia and then one also in, at least from Brazil. In Indonesia, we have somebody called Iman, who runs Ruang Guru Digital Bootcamp, and it's an online subscription model for education. So similar to Netflix in a sense, or Khan Academy or Coursera, but very well adapted to the Indonesian curriculum, lots of partnerships with the government, the ministries, different schools. And so it follows the Indonesian national curriculum. And children, you pay a subscription fee, and then you have videos, you have exam prep, you can have like micro tutoring if you don't understand this particular, you could have 15 minutes of a tutor or that type of thing. And it's, the product in a sense is targeted to people who can't afford private school and who can't afford private tutors, because in practice, the PISA scores in Indonesia are really, really low. The PISA scores being the international assessments on education, and the public schools not really delivering good content. So this is a remedial sort of product. And I think what's interesting is already Iman was pretty well established in the sense of having 2 million subscribers in Indonesia when he applied to Solve. He's grown to over 10 million subscribers since. I'm not sure the exact numbers now, but pretty big. And we have a partnership with the Australian government and Atlassian Foundation, who's particularly interested in this question about how do youth develop the skills for the workforce of the future. That was the challenge he applied for. And he got money. He's a for-profit company. And, his target market is probably middle-class, low-middle-class Indonesians. And in this case, the money he got and the partnership was really to develop a non-profit product for out-of-school Indonesians and really people who couldn't afford the product. To help like remedial training so that they can connect back into school. Not that they don't go to school at all, but that they can sort of catch up sort of curricula, if you will. So I think that's pretty interesting in that sense to think about that. And that, corresponds well to the type of thing that MIT does in terms of online education and online courses. Exactly. But sort of seeing that model has now been pushed in a much, different direction and all around the world is pretty interesting. And then, so in Latin America, notably, Carlos is from Brazil, He now lives in Florida and is an engineer originally. His daughter, unfortunately, has cerebral palsy, and a nonverbal disability. And he wasn't, he obviously had trouble communicating with his daughter, and also very difficult for her to learn. And so he developed, and the past, a lot of the things that existed, I think we all know, like Stephen Hawking and like how he would communicate in his robot voice. He was one of the more people who had access to more of that technology than maybe some other people who both couldn't afford it or wouldn't have that type of thing. But still, there hasn't been a lot of innovation in that. So he developed a tablet-based software that is much more intuitive as to how you can communicate, because the tablet sort of market has evolved compared to how it used to.
Millions of tablets.
Exactly, and they're much more affordable, et cetera, et cetera. And it's both a tool to communicate with any people with nonverbal disabilities, but also for them to learn. What started as a project for him to be able to communicate with a daughter now extends to not only sort of nonverbal developmental disabilities, such as, I guess, cerebral palsy and other maybe extreme forms of autism and other things, but also for degenerative diseases such as ALS or even Parkinson's or some of the things where like people sort of have issues sort of later in life. So that's pretty interesting as a innovation and as a
very interesting. I think I met him in New York. He was there.
Oh yes, well he was pitching and he got selected. So he's one of our, and he got he definitely got a number of prizes from different partners of ours, notably General Motors. Who was pretty interested in thinking, as they're focused on developing autonomous vehicles, people with disabilities who can't drive are hopefully going to benefit tremendously. Talk all about the sort of negative aspects of autonomous vehicles, but some of the very positive aspects of autonomous vehicles is people who can't drive for various reasons, mobility being a big one. Being able to, and then so imagine if people with nonverbal disabilities are able to communicate with the car. Let's see. That's too early on, but
two great examples of successful projects. So you've been for around 3 years or something in MIT Solve. How do you think MIT Solve will be in 5 years? From now?
Well, one of our advisors, in fact, Nubar Afayan, who runs something called Flagship Pioneering, which is a sort of venture R&D firm here in Cambridge, and very successfully launched a large number of companies, and mostly in the life sciences. He was recently saying to me, he was like, you mustn't have a vision on 3 to 5 years. It has to be on 10 years. So because it's
okay,
you need to have, there is space for miracles, and you need to be unreasonable and have unreasonable goals. And 3 to 5 years is too reasonable. So I'm going to change your question and think about 10 years. And I think 10 years. I think we're really out to show it, taking a step back. I'm sure your listeners are aware of the ambitious targets the United Nations have set around the Sustainable Development Goals, which we should be in 10 years' time. We need to be close to 2030, which is the deadline. And, those are pretty ambitious targets. And we talk, or the sort of social impact community talks often about the financing gap, the $2.5 trillion of money per annum that we're missing if we are going to achieve the SDGs. So people talk a lot about the need for governments and the private sector and philanthropy to really cough up more money if we are going to really have a dent in these in these goals. What I think we're not talking about as much, and I would like us to, and hopefully Solve can play that role, be one of the players playing that role, is the innovation gap. Is saying, do we really think, even if we had all this money suddenly, do we think that the solutions that exist today, that those, with that money, we could solve and refugees and people living in rural Liberia and people with disabilities would suddenly get all the education they need and the healthcare they need and escape poverty as per some of the goals. And certainly I think the answer is currently no. We need to invest in innovation and innovative ideas that address these SDGs. And in doing so, we should also be able to reduce the unit costs of solving these problems. So actually maybe the financing gap starts to go down if the innovation gap starts to go down. And so, in 10 years, I hope Solve has played a big role in driving innovation towards the SDGs and recognizing the social entrepreneurs and the people, these people are doing good work already in their communities. They exist. The talent and the ingenuity and the entrepreneurial spirit exists. But do they really, do they succeed, or do they get, do they suffocate in the early stage, and or do they succeed in a community somewhere, but they never really grow and expand, and this amazing idea developed in Brazil, could it be scaled across the continent of Latin America and North America and across the world? And so if we can really be this marketplace for social impact innovation, and if the solver teams we select can do good work and be recognized and validate their business model and their impact, and then connect to people that could really help them scale their solutions, that would be good. So I think that's sort of the 10-year vision, is really showing a dent on innovations towards that solve real problems, and notably the Sustainable Development Goals.
Very ambitious, and I hope that you're successful, and we'll try to help you also.
Yes, please.
You were talking about social and entrepreneurs. Are they a special kind of entrepreneurs? What?
I would like to think not. I mean, yes, in one sense. I mean, because they're not motivated by money. Fundamentally, they're motivated by solving world problems and solving and doing good in the world, right? Now, we have 50% non-profit and 50% for-profit social entrepreneurs. So we select them based on their ability to, the promise that they could impact these challenges. So we select them for, their potential ability to do good in the world. But some of them are definitely the 50% that are for profit also think they can make money and obviously create jobs and stimulate the economy in the process of, and as I mentioned, the Ruanguru Digital Bootcamp is very much a for-profit and sells their subscriptions very successfully to now over 10 million.
So social entrepreneurship is not fighting with an economic model behind it.
We define, so different people define social. Some people would say social entrepreneurs are only the for-profit, but we definitely have an expansive view that you can be a social entrepreneur and be a non-profit. Mm-hmm. And I think that the difference with a typical entrepreneur is going to be that you are really trying to, positively impact the world. And that's hopefully the criteria that you are maximizing. as opposed to maximizing profit. But I also think those things become more and more indistinguishable in the sense that really, again, going back to our question about energy, there might be some people who disagree with me, but, the future of energy and the money to be made in energy going forward is going to be on these new renewable technologies and really developing, solar, wind, wave, and things that harness, that are clean, that are, renewable, that are cheap, and that, can give access to huge new markets. So you can still, I think they'll be more and more indistinguishable that you are doing good in the world and you're making money. Well, that's my hope, but
now a little bit more personal about your career and what you think. Before being here, I understand you were on the Clinton Foundation, am I right?
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit what you were doing there?
So for about 4.5 years, I was the director of program for the Clinton Global Initiative, CGI, based in New York, which is where I moved. I moved to New York from London and from Save the Children, actually, to take this job. And so this is President Clinton's, as well as Chelsea and Hillary's foundation. And really, I was in charge of developing the program, as in the content, the speakers, for the big meetings, the annual meeting and these number of other meetings, as well as government relations. And we'd welcome sort of 80 heads of state every year. So quite a lot of people and a big job. And I think CGI was, really important in establishing the field of sort of public-private partnership and of sort of coalitions of people across sectors working together and really helping to develop some of the emerging ideas around, good social entrepreneurship and also businesses sort of doing good and doing well and things like that. So that's sort of part of my history.
So Save the Children, Clinton, and now MIT Solve.
Yes.
So I'm trying to find out what are the things you're passionate about.
Well, definitely social impact and saving the world and saving children. No, but definitely sort of positively impacting the world. And I think Save the Children previous to that was very different. I was a management strategy consultant before Save the Children, and I entered Save the Children in that type of role. So I was doing a lot of finance, HR, process, grant management, monitoring, evaluation things, and also traveling to different country offices and helping to sort of make the way that Save the Children ran more effective and efficient in that sense. And then moving to the Clinton Foundation was much more about setting the agenda for the people, setting the agenda, if you will, and helping a very different, Save the Children is a very on-the-ground organization. The Clinton Global Initiative was more about convening people to move millions of dollars and sort of change this. And then Solve is, an ecosystem builder, if you will, but supporting these, going back in a sense to the field level, but we're one step removed, but, working with people who are really working on the ground, on communities and innovation. So, I think I've had a lot of different levels where I'm playing in my career in the social impact field overall, but they're all very much aligned to sort of trying to make the world a better place, which is also MIT's mission.
Fascinating, great. Most of our listeners are educators of people that work in educational institutions. So maybe one question they are asking themselves is, can I apply these ideas of open innovation of MIT Solve in my workplace, in my institution, in my school, in my university? What will your answer to that?
Yeah, and there's definitely there's ways to work very easily with MIT Solve, first of all. So encouraging anybody at the universities or in the educational institutions to apply if they have a good solution and to submit their solution. A lot of universities work, or even student clubs, it's not necessarily the heads of the universities, but we have a solve-a-thon toolkit for people who want to host a solve-a-thon, which is like a prototyping session to help
That can be downloaded
students.
from your site?
It's not quite downloaded. We want to check that you don't make a profit on the, so we sort of, but yes, we have a toolkit that you can email us and ask us for it. So we do check you're not going to abuse it, but you can get involved in, and a lot of our solve-a-thons are done remotely. We don't send staff. They're done like that. We have a number of universities who are members of Solve and who are part of the network and send people to our events, and also then host more of these more formally, as well as sort of input on the challenges and a number of things. And yeah, I think it's sort of both a way. We get lots of applicants from MIT, both students, faculty, but also alumni who get involved. And we definitely don't, prioritize them, but a number of them do make it as solver teams. And I think that's universities. I was just at lunch with a good friend / mentor of mine, and we were quickly discussing about how one day we should write a book, whether or not we'll ever do it, on what is the role of a university in the 21st century, right? And I think that going back to how we started, that MIT's mission is, a number of universities' missions are more about, education and research, which is great, and which is fundamentally what a university has been doing, right? But what I think is amazing, and some universities are similar and some universities different, is the MIT's mission. It includes education and research, but it really is fundamentally about bettering humanity. And if you take that as the mission of the university, and what are the tools that use, and how are you not, the accusations that universities are ivory towers and closed and elitist and producing knowledge for the sake of knowledge as opposed to applying it to the world, and how are they relevant in the 21st century and how they play a role. And, when you look at the dome of MIT, it's about applying knowledge. It's not just about producing knowledge. That's what's written on the dome. So I think that's sort of and universities are these incredible pools of talent, they are these incredible ecosystems to begin with, if you will. And so how do they harness the talent, the resources that they have to be open and to drive innovation and to not be ivory towers that are disconnected from the problems that their countries, their communities, and the world faces? I think it's a good question for each university. I would say for each university to ask itself and to try. I'm not saying they all have to do solve-a-thons and solve and et cetera, but I think if they can think about open innovation, that's important to stay relevant in the 21st century and to respond to both the demands of the world, but also the demands of the students, and who I think more and more students want. Do you go to university because you want to join a corporate job? And a lot of students nowadays both want to do something that impacts the world and they want to do it themselves and be entrepreneurs in that sense. So
I agree with you. So applying these ideas of open innovation in particular with these challenges that are representative of the challenges of the humanity, it's a way of tearing down the walls of the university and connecting with the world.
Yeah.
But also, as well as this ivory tower concept that you say, there are a lot of silos in the university, and real problems are not divided in silos. No, it's not a math problem or a nutrition problem. It's problems are multidisciplinary by nature.
Yeah.
So I think it's fascinating that.
Yeah, and somebody else I spoke with, and I would tell you the names of these people, but I don't have their authorization to quote them. So, what does a major look like today is also a big question that is worth asking, I think. Is it that you should be an engineer or mathematician, etc., or how do you have, which, yes, there are technical specializations that are important, but then there's like thematic specializations. So can you also, have enough knowledge or be specialized in could you be an engineer but also really have knowledge around how engineering might be applied to education or to health or to energy, and that and what is, certainly around a university like MIT, and I also take the Monterey, what are the ethical implications and the social implications of the technologies that you are working on and developing, and what is the relationship between technologists and policymakers, and how does a student come out with, yes, a major in AI and deep, data science, deep learning, et cetera, but also has really enough of the ethical and social knowledge to be able to apply that both to the world's problems and also recognize the implications of the things they are doing. And it's not solely, I would say, it's not solely on the responsibilities of the students and the technologists. Policymakers also need to regulate, and there's lots of other things we can talk about around that. But it's, I think it would be valuable and these are questions I think that MIT is very much asking itself. But I think many universities are thinking about that broader question: is what is the role of a university in the 21st century?
Yes, that's a question that we at Tec de Monterrey ask ourselves every day, and in part now I'm realizing there's a relationship with what you were saying about open innovation, because our new educational model, Tech 21, is heavily based on challenges, real world challenges.
Yeah.
With a real, I would say, client. And we call that client the formative partner of the student, because that person can be in an NGO, government, or even an enterprise. And they have also skin on the game on connecting with a student and developing the skills and abilities that are multidisciplinary, and also not only disciplinary, but also those horizontal skills.
Teamwork. Yeah, but exactly and I think when we've shown the project-based learning and students working on things that are relevant to the world, and it's just a much better educational experience and a much more useful ones than sort of learning out of books and chalk.
Great. So for our listeners, maybe if you can tell us a URL or an email where they can ask for these tools or...
So solve.mit.edu is our website. You can see the challenges, you can apply, you can comment, you can vote, you can get in touch with our team if you want to mentor, if you want to host a solve-a-thon, if you want to join as a member. I think our general email address is solve@mit.edu, but if you go on the website and you're interested in, say, the solve-a-thons, there might be a more specific email you can directly. But if you're not sure, I think solve@mit.edu is the default.
Great, but those are the resources that are available, and I think that you gave us a lot of ideas and opened us some possibilities on how to really tackle those problems of humanity, and also how to keep universities relevant. That is one of the things that I like to talk in this show. So thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you.
For your time and your thoughts.
Look forward to hearing from your listeners.
Thanks. And thanks to our listeners also to be with us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
For more information, visit observatory.tech.mx/EduTrends podcast. Thanks to Tecnológico de Monterrey and the Tech Sounds team. Tech Sounds producer, Miguel Mejia. EduTrends producer, Esteban Venegas and Cristian Guijosa. Post-production, Max Perez. Stay tuned for the next episode of EduTrends and visit Tech Sounds in your favorite podcast app for other great shows and content.